If you could summarize your career in one word, what would it be?
Varied. Yeah, I've done quite a few different things in different places of the UK. So yeah, it's definitely been a lot more varied than I thought it would end up when I started out.
That's really interesting because I don't think I've ever had the word varied. So do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so I was trained and came up around Newcastle upon Tyne. And to be brutally honest, when I started, where I mean, no one ever finishes training, but when I got to the point in training where I was, my trainers deemed I was ready for matches, I kind of started how most people do. You get on a couple of, like academy showcases and stuff like that, and then start working a couple of like small local shows. And I honestly thought, oh, cool, like this is great, like that'll do me. I'm local, that's fair enough. And then I started getting work outside of Newcastle, went to places I've never visited before, that's south and up north. So yeah, it's taken me on a bit of a journey. So it's been great.
Absolutely. So we were talking all about that, your journey into wrestling, anything in between, the firing squad, UKW, Kirsty as well, everything in between. Enough rambling on. Let's get into the intro. Damian, how's the week been, mate? All right?
Yeah, it's been good. The weather's been a bit on and off, but aside from that, all good, man. All good. How about yourself?
Yeah, the heat's obviously been knocking hell out of us and stuff. We've actually got rain for the first time this week, so hopefully it cools it down. But I know for a fact it's not gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Same. I'm happy there's a day of rain up here right now, but I'm not hopeful it'll last.
No, stuff like that. How you been coping with the heat? All right?
Yeah, it's been all right. Generally, just done all the stuff, stay extra hydrated while training and things like that. But it's been all right. I've worked a couple of shows outside in the heat, and I picked up a little bit of sunburn last weekend. But apart from that, it's all right.
I gotta ask, because that's the first time I've heard that. How do you prepare for like wrestling outside? Is it same as normal, or is it like a different process?
I mean, it very much depends on the weather. Like in terms of the logistics of the show and running the show and running your match, it's the same. But then you have things that you can't always account for. So, I mean, the heat at the minute's a perfect example. It's really hot. It's really sunny. You can't get out of that. You're not protected by a building or aircon. Or you can go the other way. It can be windy. It can be raining. You can get halfway through a show and then the heavens open up and everything's soaked, and then you feel like everyone's moving in triple time trying to get the ring down after the show as well. So yeah, the weather's the biggest component of it, and it can have such big swings on how it goes. And you might have so much stuff planned for your match and go, all right, well, we're going to do like hurricane ranas and satellite DDTs and all this cool stuff off the top, and then the rain starts and you're told, hey, we can't really be doing that because obviously it becomes a slip hazard or whatever, and you don't want people injured. So you then have to quickly, sometimes with seconds of notice, be like, right, okay, we need to change this, we need to do that, we need to. So it's a bit chaotic, but it's in a weird way, it's a really good learning tool for adapting on the fly.
Interesting. So yeah, I said also talking about your career, mate. You kind of touched on it in the introduction and stuff like that, but how does it all begin? What made you obviously want to get into wrestling?
So I got into wrestling originally, as most people do when you're a kid. You get into wrestling, you like wrestling. And a friend of mine who I used to hang out with all the time, I think we would have been like 15 at the time, went, oh, I found this wrestling club, he called it, where they teach wrestling. I thought, oh, that'd be cool. Like as a kid, I've always done like martial arts and stuff. Like my parents have always been very big on, hey, always have something physical that you're doing. And I thought, oh, okay, like you'll learn a bit wrestling, you'll do a bit wrestling or whatever. And I went down with my mate, checked it out. And that was the IWF in Newcastle, where we learned everything, you know, drills, rolling, bumping, how to wrestle, chain, all sorts of stuff like that. And I kind of got into there with him, and that's where we then learned like how it works, if that makes sense. You know, it's not, you know, you learn the intricacies of putting on the performance. And then from there, like, I took a bit of a break. So you're talking, I was like 15, 16. I took a bit of a break. I spent a bit of time playing American football, which again saw me going around the country. It was great. And but over my time playing American football, I remember eventually I retired from it because I had a couple of blows to the head. And I was like, you know what? I can't risk an injury, can't risk anything long term. So I'm gonna knock that on the head. So I walked away from football, and one of my mates in the Newcastle scene, a guy by the name of Dave Carbon, messaged me the day I'd kind of announced that I wasn't playing American football anymore, and went, "Ha, mate, does that mean you're coming back to wrestling?" And I kind of had a laugh with him about it. But then a week later, I was in training again, in training with Full Tilt Wrestling from there in Newcastle, and that's kind of how I got my start and started getting out on the shows from there. So yeah, it went from joking about it to coming back in and jumping in with both feet, and I've kind of not looked back since.
Interesting. Now, one of the promotions obviously I know you really from is obviously UKW in thingy. How did that all begin?
So UKW, UK Wrestling, based in Batley. They have a phenomenal setup. They work their show. They work like TV. You've got cameras, you've got production, everything's mic'd up. They are streamed and broadcast around the world. So I always thought to myself that would be a great opportunity. I wasn't sure how to approach them at first, being that I'm, you know, they're based in Batley and I'm up in Newcastle. I wasn't really sure at first how to approach them. And I got contacted by them because they had Kirsty Love on, and she was traveling from Newcastle at the time, and knew I was local to Newcastle, knew I was in the area, had seen some of my work and knew that I drove, so recommended me to them. So they brought me down. I went in as the driver. I had a match against Tommy Dillon, one of their in-house talent. And, you know, having the pre-show rundown, I remember sitting there, I was like, cool. And I assume I'm just going down there, you know, I'm just the driver. I'm gonna put their guy over. I'm gonna make him look good, and that'll probably be the end of it. But then, you know, we got down there and we're running through the show and the card, and I was surprised because it was like, oh, Damian Black over, right? Okay, cool. So we worked with that. We had a good match, and then they kept bringing me back month on month, and I thought, hey, this is brilliant. This is great. Good locker room, very welcoming. Everyone's super friendly. Like you walk in, I cannot go down there for a little while now, and I'll walk in and it's like they're all my best mate and I've not seen them in a long time. Everyone's very quick to come over, say hello, shake your hand, ask how you're doing, have a chat about what you've been up to. And from there, I mean, UKW treated me very, very well. You know, I was just going down month to month, you know, not expecting much, but doing the best I can for them while I'm there. And we had a chat about something that at the time they didn't really have, which was I'm a heel wrestler. One of the things I've always wanted to do is have a faction. So I floated the idea of a faction to the promoter, and he loved the idea, got behind it. We discussed ideas. I floated it through my mentor a bit. We had a bit of a chat backwards and forwards. We sorted out who was going to be in it, what was going to be happening, what the rough idea was. And then we did that. And again, brilliant, super happy with that. That was me thinking, right, this is the peak. I've got what I want. I'm doing good work for these guys and they treat me really well. You know, I think my win-loss record there, I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head, but it was phenomenally in my favor. And then the real shock came, it was WrestleBration the first year I worked for them, which is their big that's their mania basically. And I had a match against their heavyweight champion, Jonathan Sedgwick, and I thought, wow, that's cool. He went over and won, and I thought, okay, cool, that was brilliant. We told a good story. And then the following month, I remember we had a rematch, and that's when I then became their world heavyweight champion. And again, just trekked brilliantly. I had myself, I had the squad around me. We were given a lot of creative freedom, trekked very well. And for like a year, I was their world heavyweight champion. It was just given this phenomenal run and this phenomenal amount of trust by them as well, which was great. And that's been phenomenal for me in terms of, not just putting on work in that televised environment or on their network as such, but also in terms of being able to then make contacts other places, speak to other people, speak to other promoters, and get out there a bit more, which is it's been great. It was phenomenal. So that was a real kind of high point of my career so far, really.
How did the name come about, the Firing Squad?
So the Firing Squad, so we knew we were going to make a faction. We were trying to think of an idea. So at the time, it was myself, and it was Damon Crow and Uther from UK Wrestling. They were already a tag team called the Brotherhood, and they wore black and gold. So we were thinking, we had a few ideas. I'd said from the word go, I want to do what a lot of other factions don't do and actually look like a team. So, we'll do like matching gear. We'll have a palette. We'll have a color scheme. And because they already wore black and gold, we quite quickly decided, all right, well, I'll get some black and gold gear made. So black and gold is the color scheme. We've got that. Now we need a name. So I was thinking of things that might work that we're using the Brotherhood name, but a lot of them sounded a bit like too try-hard, edgy. So we couldn't decide on a name. I was like, can we incorporate my moniker of the Silencer in anything? And I was like, no, that doesn't work. So there's a bit humming and hawing. And I was talking with Tamatonga at the time about ideas. And one of the ideas we had when we were chatting was, hey, there's the Firing Squad. And I was like, I like the sound of that. It's brutal. It sounds really heelish. It's savage. It fits into our ethos of, even as a singles wrestler, I've always said, like, hey, my ethos is I'll win by any means. I'll do whatever it takes. Overwhelming brutality is the name of the game. And they were very much on board with that as well, the Damon Crow and Uther. So we thought, all right, okay, great. That fits. That works perfectly. I was coming up with promo ideas from it. We were thinking of, how we could incorporate the color design into a logo and stuff. And I went, oh, yeah, that sounds brilliant. And I know that was a name that Tamatonga and his brother Tangaloa used in New Japan when they were both wrestling in New Japan as the Guerrillas of Destiny, part of Bullet Club. They originally set up the Bullet Club Firing Squad. And I went, are you sure you want me to use it? Because it might be quite closely, associated or related or something. But no, he was really cool, really chill about it. He said, no, mate, I don't mind at all. Use it, go for it. Just look after it, treat the name with a bit of gravitas, don't, if you're going to be like the comedy heels going in there and doing the job every week, maybe don't use it. But from the run I've had so far and what we're talking about doing with it, it sounds like it's going to be this brutal dominant thing. So yeah, go for it, use it. And so that was it. So then I went back to the promoter at UKW and went, hey, here's a name I want to use. Obviously, I chatted with the lads first. They loved it. I went, hey, here's the name I want to use. Here's roughly what we're thinking in terms of what we want to do in the ring or in storyline. And he was like, yeah, go for it. That sounds great. So we set it up and we did the Firing Squad from there. And then we came up with the Big Guns Up moniker. Yeah. Because we thought we need something to go out and do when we go out. We can't just go out and stare at everyone, especially Uther because he's wearing a mask. Like, it'll look a bit weird if he just goes out and he's just kind of staring into the middle distance. So we're like, right, we need something. And to be brutally honest, that came from Will Ospreay's United Empire. We saw them doing like the crowns up thing. And we're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that sounds really good. And then we're like, well, we're the Firing Squad, so guns, pew, 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 pew. So what if we did guns? Or oh, brilliant, yeah. And so we literally came up with that in the locker room at UKW about 10 minutes before a match. The first time we did it. So then yeah, so we worked with that, and then we've had we've had stuff that was drawn for us that we then put out our t-shirts and our gear and logos. And gears by Zoe, who's a phenomenal gear artist, drew us some designs based on those, which were all, incorporating those designs, incorporating that theme, the colors. So everyone's got their individuality, but it still matches the overall theme and color palette. And that's kind of how the whole thing came around with the three of us at the beginning. And then obviously it grew from there and changed form a bit. But that's definitely how it started.
Interesting. I'm really talk a little bit about the talent pool from UKW. I mean, there's some incredible talent there. Seb's obviously one who comes to mind. Joe. I mean, there's so many great talent at UKW.
Yeah, there's so many guys there that, I mean, they're getting so much experience as well because, you've mentioned there, you've got Seb, you've got Joe, both phenomenal wrestlers. You've got, Paul Hubris comes along. You've got George Hunter there, who is one of the, they're up and coming guys at the minute, but he's great. Like he's doing so much good stuff. NRG were I first met them down there. Just so many names that you could pull out from them, and they all have their own thing as well. They're not all wrestling the same way or doing the same style. They've all got their individuality to them. And like I said, they're getting so much experience because for so many of these guys, they're wrestling. I mean, some of them are wrestling 3 times a week on shows, and then they have their monthly pay-per-views as well, where they're then getting pay-per-view exposure. They're getting, on a pay-per-view week, or if you took that the week of and then the week after, in that 7-day period, you've got guys who are potentially working 6 or 7 matches, and that's like an insane level of experience, and that you don't really get that anywhere else. When I was coming up through Newcastle, it was, you started off working 1 show a month, then you talk to a couple of people, and then it's maybe 2 a month, maybe 3 a month, and you're slowly building and building. But these guys get just so much time and space to highlight their skills and highlight what they're doing, and they find out in front of a live crowd what works, what doesn't work. And they're all incredibly approachable about it as well, really. So, you'll walk up to somebody in the locker room. It could be Joe, it could be Seb, it could be Dylan Chase or anybody. You can walk up to them in that locker room, and they'll happily have a chat with you about their match, what they thought went well, what didn't. They'll ask for feedback, they'll listen, they'll offer feedback. Do you know what I mean? So they're a really well close-knit group in there, and they've got some absolute standouts who are, making waves across the UK scene now as well, which is great to see.
Yeah, even on the women's side as well. I mean, you've got obviously Kirsty Love, you've got Leonie Rose. I mean, Nisa, that's another one. I mean, there's so many names I could mention, and I'd probably leave somebody out as well.
Oh yeah, there's so many. Like, obviously you've got everyone you've mentioned there. You've got Ruby Brocco, Drew Ashland's doing great. Like and then on top of that as well, they have this fluctuating system of people coming in from outside to work, not only with the lasses, but you've got these people who will come in and they'll work. World travel talent will come into the building and into the company to work with these guys and really bring them on. And it's just great seeing that kind of level of impact that what they're doing is having on their careers. Again, you can not see somebody for a month or 2, depending on the circumstances. You can not see somebody for a little while, come back, see them, and you can see the marked improvement in how they're moving, how they're interacting with the crowd, how they're executing their moves, the psychology of their matches. You get it's just leaps and bounds. It's very cliche to say that, but the progression and the development is leaps and bounds there, which is always great to see.
Absolutely. And one name we mentioned there was Kirsty Love and stuff like that. What's that like for you, obviously, like working with her in the ring?
It's interesting. So When I first began at UK Wrestling, she was a babyface, I was a heel. So it was, we don't see each other, we don't interact, we don't, there's nothing that happens on camera or in storyline between us. And then they decided, hey, we'll heel turn her. Because she'd been a babyface for a while, and it's good to mix things up. When the heel turned her, they gave us the opportunity. Hey, do you want her in the firing squad? And we were like, yeah, like she's a phenomenal worker. She's better than I am. Like, so I was like, yeah, let's have her. She's got a long tenured career, and we were like, hey, we don't have a female wrestler in the group yet. Well, let's do it. Let's get her in. So we did, and then we got to work together on some storylines. We got to work in ring together. So since then, we've done things like, we've got to cut promos together, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's something that we're not used to doing together. So that was a good, interesting new challenge. We got to work spots in the ring together where the squad are interfering in my matches, and we can use her in interesting ways. Or we've got to tag together, which we've never done before outside of UK wrestling. So that was interesting, getting to just do tag team stuff together, and doing some of those tag combinations or that heel heat, the cutoffs, everything like that was dead interesting to do. We've had, I think, in our entire time that we've been wrestling and obviously traveling together, we've had one match where we've worked against each other, which was at APW, and for that, it was literally we just had a singles match against each other. And the only thing I remember that match is me being chopped viciously. I'd never taken one of her chops before. So taking chops in that match was, I can see now why the sound is good as they do, because that's stung. But yeah, at UKW, it was great getting to actually work with each other on the same side. Even a heel character at first, she spent that long working babyface that for her it was a real journey and an experiment, learning how to work heel, learning how to work as part of a faction, because it is a bit different. You don't have that, hey, I'm just the villain and I'm the bad guy and here we go. It's making it worth being in a group is using the group as an extension of your character and an extension of what the group is. So yes, it's the things like interfering for each other or whatever, but it can also be things like just being at ringside for each other. It's a big thing when you get used to doing that stuff. So I think the first time we actually did that in a match was in me and Kirsty was she was at ringside with two of the other lads, and I'd fed my opponent down, and I didn't notice this until we'd watched it back, but I fed my opponent down by the ropes. And the way we've always done it since we started was, hey, I'll put my opponent down near the ropes. I'll take the ref away. You guys just give him a bit of a mugging. So I did that. Boom, down he goes. I take the ref away. And I saw when I watched the episode back, I saw on the footage, the lads go straight in and start hammering my opponent on the apron. And Kirsty has this moment where she goes to go with them because we're the same group and let's go. And then kind of stops and hesitates and kind of has that, oh, well, I can't cheat. Oh, wait, hang on, no, I'm the heel, but it's not my match. But I'm part of it. You can see this almost conversation in her head, and then she goes over and lays some hits in. So it's good. It's quite good seeing that kind of stuff and working on that. And it's been great from a creative standpoint as well. It means, at home, there's somebody I can talk to about ideas or run things creatively by without having to be like, right, I'll put a message in the group chat and then wait for somebody to get back to me, or I'm trying to articulate an idea through text to somebody. I can just have a conversation in the car or whatever and be like, hey, I'm thinking of this idea, or I'm thinking of suggesting this for the lads, or we've talked about maybe doing X, Y, Z. What do you think? And you've got that immediate creative feedback as well, and it goes both ways, because similarly she can run ideas by us, and we'll say whether it does or doesn't work for her, and whether it does or doesn't work for the group as well. So it's an interesting situation, like an interesting dynamic, but it definitely benefits, I think, for sure.
Yeah, she has been on the show, and like I said, she's an incredible person. What's she like behind the scenes, like behind wrestling?
Pretty quiet.
I
But,
don't see that.
To be fair, I'm also pretty quiet, so it's quite, it's like a nice little vibe. It's quite chill. Like, you know, you see her screaming in the ring, especially when she's doing like a banshee gimmicks with the knees and stuff. You see her screaming on in the ring. You see me shouting at people, jaw jacking them, and you think, oh god, that's going to be the loudest household you've ever seen in your life. But no, we're quite quiet. Like we work out together, we train together. Like I'm in the garage now, which is our gym. But then aside from that, you know, she watches like, you know, she'll watch like some movies or a bit of Netflix or something. And she'll just quite happily like kind of chill out with the cat, and you know, we'll go for a walk or whatever, and she's just this, you wouldn't think it, she's just this like normal, I don't want to say timid, but like this normal quiet lass. But then something happens as soon as you get her in a wrestling ring, or she laces them boots up, you can almost see the switch flip. And at times even I'm like, well, she's a bit scary, I don't want to get too close there. But yeah, no, she's perfectly chill. Very, you know, the complete opposite of how she acts in the ring at the minute. She's yeah, very, very chill, a little bit quiet, but yeah, super kind, super nice to be around, and super supportive of my career and stuff. So, you know, it's good. It's a good way to have it.
Absolutely. So one thing obviously I want to talk about now is obviously the character. Talk about obviously the name and stuff, how it all come about, the Silencer.
Yeah. When it came to the Silencer, so I had a moniker a while ago, which was the Rogue, and that was just something that I'd come up with. I was talking to a ring announcer at a show in Newcastle, and he was like, you know, all right, mate, what's your name? Where should I bill you from? And all that stuff. I gave him my name, and I was like, Damian Black, and he was like, okay. And then I could see him kind of looking off, and I went, oh, are you okay? Like, that all right? You know what I mean? I was like, is that okay? Or is there someone else called Damian Black on the show or something? And he's like, yeah, it's cool. It's like, let's give it a bit of punch, because he's like, you know, he does like really good big announcing. So he's like, I just want something I can ring out the room with. I went, okay, cool. And he went, so talk to us about your character. And I was like, oh, well, I do this. You know, same ethos that I still have now. You know, I'm very win by any means. You know, I'm a big guy. I use power moves, but I don't mind having to fight a bit dirty if I have to. He went, oh, so you're a bit of a rogue then? And I went, yeah, you could say. So he just announced me like that. It was like, the Rogue, Damian Black, and that just stuck. And then I was having you know, I used that for a while. I used that for probably a year and a half. And then I was having another conversation with the promoter who kind of went, I like it, and I like that you've got this moniker, but Rogue doesn't make it clear whether you're a villain or a babyface. Like, you know, you could still have a babyface who's the Rogue because he's a bit cheeky and you love him for it and all this stuff. And you could also work for a villain. And so I just want something a bit more clear cut. And we're like, right, okay. I was like, I'll go away and I'll think about it. So again, I was shooting ideas, thinking of stuff, and again, I was talking to Tam Tonga about this at the time, and I was trying to really figure it out. And because I just kept using Rogue for a while, and then we ended up in lockdown. So, funny enough, it's when we were in lockdown we were talking about this, and I was like, I think I need something that's it's brutal, it's savage, it's, you know, but it's no nonsense and all this stuff. And he's like, all right, okay. And he's like, so what about some kind of like, because again, we're discussing ideas for a faction and things already. So if you look at the idea of like a faction, and the way it was told to me was just like, look at the way Bullet Club was run. That was always run as, this is like wrestling mafia. So if you had that set up and you were a guy in that kind of situation, and you're going out there and you're doing these jobs for this organization. So if you're a guy that goes out and just brutally savages somebody and takes them out, you're like this, you know, it's almost like an assassin type character. I was going, yeah, you know, yeah, absolutely. But in my head, I'm going, I can't use assassin. And then it's like, you know, it's like this brutal, like, it's like, you know, it's like putting a hit out on somebody. You go out and you know, I was like, okay, cool. And I had a bit of backwards and forwards about it. And it's like, you know, it's almost like you go out there and it's like, hey, this guy's a problem to our organization. So you go out and you silence him. And that just stuck in my head. And I went, ooh, silencing somebody, like, ooh, shutting them up, like putting them out of it. I said, oh, I like that. And then I went back and I had a chat with the promoter and I was like, to be honest, I don't even think silencer was the original thing we come up with. But I went, hey, silencer was what just came out of my mouth because that's what stuck in my head. I said, oh, what about like the silencer? And I was like, and I was like, oh, you know, I can even do things if you want. I'll start a submission finish. So I'll start using like a sleeper hold and I'll just put people out with it. Great, brilliant. Yeah, loved it. But there was another guy who was one of their like, you know, he was like a very MMA style guy who they had on their roster who was using a sleeper hold as a finish. So I couldn't do that. So I kept my finish the same, but then we started using silencer as a moniker. And then I found that led into like loads of good promotional stuff that I can use in promos, you know, threatening to silence people, you know, giving it the shushing them and stuff. And then, funny enough, leads back to UKW. They even used that on commentary when there'd be, you know, this is when I was in the kind of in the rhythm of my world heavyweight title run with them. So I'm a few months into it here, and they started saying this thing on commentary all the time. And every time I heard it, I was like, oh, that sounds good. Like as a promotion for a wrestling match, that sounds good. Because the commentators would be like, oh, you know, it's so and so versus Damian Black at the next pay-per-view. Can anybody silence the silencer? Will they be the one to silence him? And I was like, you know what? As a hype up for a match, that works. So I was like, it just felt like it worked on so many levels, not just on myself. And I've just kept it since, and I'm still using it to this day. So yeah, that was kind of how it came about, was me misremembering something, but it just worked.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where it's like a hook, do you know what I mean? Like the silent, you said there, do you know what I mean? The silencer, can he be silent? Do you know what I mean? It's like wordplay in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it works, and it gives not just myself something, you know, I think because it works on so many levels, the announcer has something to announce. I have something I can use in promos. My opponent has things that they can use in promos as fuel against me. Commentary can, promotions can, post it. I was like, yeah, this works because it's not just about making me look better or look harder or whatever. It elevates the whole storyline of what you're telling, or gives plenty of people creative fuel to do their own things to come at it with, which I thought was just great. So I've kind of just loved it since and used it. So it's been great.
Absolutely. So this next question I ask a lot of people, and it kind of stumps them, and I don't know why, but we're going to go with it anyway. For people obviously who's not familiar with yourself, why should fans go check you out? This is where you'd like to promote yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I see why this question trips people up a bit. So for myself, if you're not familiar with my work around the UK so far, I mean, I'm trying to push out there more, but around the UK so far, if you're not familiar with my work, it's a very old school style of working. And by that, I don't mean the old school British style of holds and stuff. I mean, in terms of it's smash mouth wrestling, basically. I'm a big guy, so I'm doing big guy stuff, you know, very physical with strikes, lots of power moves, but also that underhandedness. Well, you don't see a lot in bigger guys. Like, I think bigger guys tend to get shoehorned quite easily into, you're the big guy, so you don't bump and you just powerhouse everybody, but you've got that underhanded nature to it as well. So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to smash you in the face with the forearm. I'm going to slam you as hard as I can on the mat. I'm going to launch you around like a rag doll, but I'm also going to rake your eyes, throw you into ring posts, launch you out and try to get count out. It's that, again, I've said it a couple times now, but it's that do anything to win ethos. So you never, whether you're seeing my match in person or you're watching it on playback, you don't exactly know what you're going to see out of it, because my tactics or my approach or my psychology in the ring is very adaptable depending on who I'm in there with. You know, you've got that threat of, yes, I work by myself a lot, but I'm also very versatile as a tag team wrestler with the members of the firing squad. You know, anything up to, I think, 10-man tags we've worked so far. So it's that interplay between the group as well, you know, that synergy you've got. And yeah, also just that, you know, being leader of that kind of group is, you know, it means you've got to stay sharp. It means you've got to stay on the knife's edge, as it were. So I have to constantly evolve and change what I'm doing. But yeah, I think of all the big guy or bigger wrestlers in the UK, I don't think anyone's wrestling the way I'm wrestling. And, you know, you're not necessarily going to see that from anybody else. So you've got to, you know, you've got to get to those shows. You've got to give it a watch. You've got to check it out for yourself. See that savage. You see the brutality, but you know the cutting behind it. It's not big dumb powerhouse. It's a powerhouse with a brain. You know, and that's quite a dangerous combination.
It definitely is. It definitely is. So with wrestling, obviously injuries happen and stuff like that. Have you suffered many injuries?
Thankfully, I haven't. The closest I've ever gotten is I was taking a DDT. This was years ago. This is like 2019, I think. I was taking a DDT, and I don't know what happened, but I managed to twist my ankle on the way down. And you know, it ballooned up when we were like, "Oh man, this is bad," to the point where somebody did drive me to A&E for it. But thankfully, nothing was broken, nothing was damaged. It was just kind of rest it, the swelling will go down. So I had to take I think it was like, I took 6 days off where I didn't train and I tried to stay off it. So thankfully I've had nothing as bad as that. I'm surprised I haven't, to be honest, because there's been a few times where I've taken a bump from something or been smashed hard with an object, and I think, you just have that moment before the impact where you're like, oh, this is going to hurt. Like this could do something to me here. And you've got to just go for it in the moment. And thankfully, I have not sustained an injury from it. But, you know, that's with like everything crossed, because, you know, I'll probably jinx myself and I'll go out and injure myself at the weekend or something. But no, it's been fine. Like I've been very fortunate in that a lot of the people I work with, again, especially the UK wrestling lot, I've spent a lot of time working with those guys. Everybody's very safe. Everybody is trained. Everybody has a standard that they work and hold themselves to. So I've not had a situation where someone has either intentionally tried to hurt me or accidentally tried to hurt me, which is great. And I've gotten quite lucky in that I've not, because in wrestling it can be as easy as, you know, you can take a suplex that you've taken hundreds or thousands of times, but you can land just the slightest bit wrong or just differently to how you always land it, and you've injured yourself. Like, it's that easy, honestly. Every move you take in wrestling is a risk. So I do consider myself very lucky that nothing has happened yet. And hopefully it stays that way. Like I said, there's been a couple of close calls. I had one of the few hardcore matches I've ever had was with Tommy Dillon, again at UK Wrestling. And there was a few, like, you know, chair shots, or there was like a hammer shot at one point and things like that. And it's things like, yes, he's safe, I'm protecting myself, but there's just that odd chance or something clips you just the wrong way. You know, one of the chair shots in particular, I remember, hit me and I was like, right, boom, that was safe. And I took the bump. I was lying there, and just before I fed up, I felt a bit slow. I thought, oh, have I rattled my head here? Have I concussed myself? Have I done something? I was checking my head and I was like, no, I'm not bleeding, I'm fine. And then, you know, up we go and carry on. But that's honestly probably the closest I've ever come. Yeah, I think that's probably the closest I've ever come. But no, thankfully, nothing yet, and I hope it stays that way.
Okay, so when we put obviously on Instagram, fans obviously got a chance to send some questions in. We got one from _Yorkshireman90. I think I said that right. And he says, okay, what was your best match to date?
Oh, my best match to date. So in terms of personal accomplishment, I've got a couple of different answers. So personal accomplishment was my match against Jonathan Sedgwick, winning the UK Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship. You know, it was great match. We'd been feuding for a little while. We were telling stories. So it had a good storyline to it. There was lots happening around the match. It was a good match on the night. Both looked strong. Lots of stuff happening, good backwards and forwards, lots of drama, which is what you want in a big title match. But then the reason it's on that list for me straight away is that was a huge win, obviously, world heavyweight champion for a company with worldwide exposure. But that was also my first singles title that I've ever held. So that holds a bit of a place for me. And then I was really blessed afterwards, like I said, to go on such a long run with it. Hopefully not for the last time. But that definitely sticks in there for me. I still remember my first wrestling match that I had. And that, just for the achievement of it alone, was one that sticks out to me. Yorkshireman asked that question. Me and Yorkshireman had a random match on a Monday night episode for UK Wrestling. And I thought that was a really good match as well. We didn't have a lot of time to put it together. We were shifted on the card a little bit, which, happens, and you've got to be adaptable. But for how much we had to kind of move around with that match, I think that went really well, and that was good backwards and forwards as well. I had quite I was going to say strong style, but like that sounds a bit gimmicky. Like quite a hard-hitting, just very classical, two guys smashing each other around until one guy can't stand up match with Paul Hubris. That was a personal standout because he's well traveled. He's worked a lot of dates in America. He's worked with the NWA. He's worked with AEW. So getting to have that very, again, to use that term, smash mouth, but that very smash mouth physical brawly match with him was great. And then on a slightly softer note, actually getting to work a match with Kirsty as well was great. Because, it's not often people get to work together like that. And we got to do it, and it was a fun match. Like I said, I still remember the chops more than anything else, but it was still a fun match with a crowd that was into it. And yeah, so that's a bit of a highlight as well. So yeah, I haven't really got one match that's my all-out favorite, but they're some of the highlights for various reasons, really.
Great question. So what's one thing you think fans will never understand when it comes to wrestling?
Ooh. The effect that performing the match has on you. Like, that sounds really vague, but I'll drill into it. So a lot of people go, oh, well, you plan what you're going to do, you know what you're going to do, and then you go out there and you do it. It's not that hard. You just got to remember it. And it's like, well, yeah, but you go out there and you're physically performing it. So it's the constant up and down. It's the movement. It's the athleticism that you're displaying. But then you can't catch your breath because you're then doing crowd work, or you're jacking, words at your opponent, or there's something going on, which means you can't just sit and gather your breath back, or you're moving on to the next bit. And then that makes the remembering it all part a bit harder, because you go from just, right, I've got to remember A, B, C, D, E, and that's it, to, right, we're going A to B, but, right, okay, I'm a bit gassed now because we've bumped a few times, you've bumped a few times, the ref's talking at me, the crowd are yelling, we're trying to talk, something's happening, I'm trying to get my breath back. What was B again? Right, cool, yeah, that was B. Do you remember B? Yeah, cool, you remember B, let's go do B, bam, 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 big bump, pin, kick out, we're selling, we're working up, right, now let's go from B to C, and then you repeat that process again of what's happening, who's talking, what they're saying, how am I interacting, and I think until you've been in and you've done that a few times, it's quite a weird thing to get used to, because a lot of it's down to your conditioning and what pace you're going at. But then I also try to think from the perspective of a fan, and I think if I'm a fan and I'm at a wrestling show, if I'm interacting with the wrestlers and I'm interacting with the match, it's better when they interact back. You know, if the crowd is yelling, shouting, chanting, or whatever at the ring, but nobody in the ring's giving them anything back, then they're going to stop. So you have to keep up the energy, and you have to keep up your character, I guess. But you have to be then constantly, not constantly, because it's not always feasible to do it, but you have to be respecting the energy they're giving you and give them that energy and performance back, while also giving it to your opponent, while also remembering where you're at, remembering what's next, how long have we gone, how long have we got, and you know what I mean. So that's I basically just said having a wrestling match is the long way of saying that, but it is very much it's a real process and something that really takes a long time to learn, and that's why, you know, even when you're training at your local wrestling school, that's why you spend so much time doing sequences or drills or putting on training matches at the end of a training session, is to get you used to that stuff and calling it. And yeah, like that for me personally, when I first started working wrestling shows, that was one of the big shocks to me, because let's say outside the ring, I'm quite a quiet guy. So to suddenly have all this stuff happening and all this interaction, is my conditioning and my cardio able to keep up with it? Am I able to, you know, get the air out, get the air in, remember what's happening, remember what's coming, communicate where I need to? And yeah, honestly, it's a whole thing. I'd always recommend everybody tries it. You know, if you're a wrestling fan who's ever been curious about wrestling, find a local reputable school, learn how to wrestle, and even if it's just to experience what that is like, do it, and it gives you a deeper understanding for the medium and the craft and the artistry of it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I've done, like I said, 95 interviews and stuff like this, and the key thing that pops up all the time, and it kind of expands what you just said there, is the communication. You know what I mean? You communicate with each other, because things do happen, things can change, and more importantly, injuries.
Yeah, that's it. So again, everything I've just said there is that's assuming everything's going right. But you know, we could be at point B to C, and we've still got 10 minutes of time to fill. We're doing a match, you just kicked out, and I go, "You're all right?" After the kick out, and you go, I've hurt my shoulder. I think I broke my finger, or you know, and something. And then it's that adaptability and that communication to be like, right, okay, well, now we need to without making it, you know, without breaking the illusion or you know, shattering it. It's right. We need now communicate this to the ref, and it still needs to look like a credible match, because you don't want to make it look too obvious that you're hurt. And there's all this false bravado about, oh, you know, if you're hurt, you just get through it and da. But things happen where you maybe can't continue. You know, if you broke your arm, for example, you can't just tough through that. I mean, some people might, but it's going to hamper your recovery to do it. So you have that responsibility for your opponent at that point to be like, right, I need to get you out of this safely. So you might need to have that conversation with the ref, who then has the conversation with him. And then you have to work out either a way of adjusting and quickly finishing your match, or you need to work some kind of stoppage or something. And like you just said yourself there, and like many other people have said in the interviews, that's all communication. And it is a skill that needs to be learned. Going back to my very early training matches, the most consistent bit of feedback I used to get by my trainer was, you need to talk. Because I would go in there, we'd plan a match, would go in, and I'd just silently do it. You know, obviously apart from making noises for selling, or, you know, yelling at the crowd or taunting my opponent or whatever. But he's like, apart from that, you're not communicating, you're quiet. So it is definitely, honestly, it's a skill that takes some learning and some practice, but it is a good one.
Absolutely, and stuff like that. So what's the goal obviously for you now, man? Do you know what I mean? You've done so much, obviously, in such a short time and stuff like that. What's the personal goal for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I've gotten a good sample of what wrestling in the UK is like. You know, I've worked in Newcastle, outside of Newcastle. You know, everything from a social club to, you know, the UKW arena to, you know, I've been out there with touring companies, done the old going to Butlins and all that stuff. Up here in Scotland, you know, I've come up here, I've done bits up here, worked the gala days, worked venues up here, and it's kind of like I feel like I've got a good sampling of what the UK is like to wrestle in. There's a lot of places in the UK I would still like to wrestle. I'm really interested in working with the likes of Nebula Wrestling. They've got a good school and show system going. It's doing brilliantly for itself. Obviously, I would like to keep working with UK wrestling and other companies that I've worked with up here in Scotland. I've gotten to do some bits with W3L, SWE. I'd like to keep doing that. But you know, a bit more stuff down south. You know, I'd love to be able to say I would work with Progress. Love to be able to say I've worked with Rev Pro one day. Working with Wrestle Carnival is another one on my bucket list. But then also pushing out of the UK as well. I'd love to go wrestle in America. I'm not sure how to make it happen yet, but I would love to do it. I want to go wrestle in Japan. Big fan of Japanese wrestling, so I'd love to go over there and work. And again, I'm working on making that happen. There's Pro Wrestling Society in South Korea is a promotion I've had my eyes on, who I recommend checking out. They've just had a phenomenal show where they had over 3,000 people in attendance, and I would love to go and work with them. You know, take the firing squad, take the name over there, make it international, but also myself, and get myself out there on the international stage a bit more would be the dream. Some of it I'm working on, some of it I'm figuring out how to do, but it's that thing of, you know, trying to, this is what I want to do, now how do I make it happen, and then going out and try and figure it out.
Do you have like a top 3 opponents you'd like to get in the ring with?
If I could pick absolutely anybody, ooh. Yes. So obviously we're fantasy booking here. I've gotten a lot of good advice from this guy, so I would love to get in the ring with Tamatonga one day, work a match. That would be a bucket list match. Katsuhiko Nakajima, been a big fan of his since his days in Pro Wrestling Noah. Got a phenomenal hard-hitting style. So I would absolutely love to get in the ring with him and see what we could come up with. And I would really, really love to work somebody a bit closer to home. I want to work with Charles Crowley as well. Phenomenal in-ring talent, phenomenal storyteller. Absolutely amazing character work. Beloved by the fans, so I'd love to get in and work with him as well.
He's incredible. Do you know what I mean? I love his character work. And I love his promos as well. They're really good.
Oh, unreal. I look at him when he's doing promos, I'm like, man, just the story we could tell between the promo game between us would be great. So yeah, he's definitely on my list. There's many others on it, you know, but they would be my top 3. If I could have anyone I wanted next week in a match, they would be the 3 I'd pick. But yeah, I'm also looking to expand that list of people I want to work. And even the squad as well. Like my goal is to expand the firing squad more as well. Bring more people into it. We're a really close-knit group who always this isn't character talk. This is, you know, shoot or behind the scenes, as it were. But like a really close-knit group of people who watch each other's backs and help each other out. And I think that's a good thing to have in wrestling. So we talk to promotions, we go, hey, let's go in and work here and work there. And we're all doing the job to all help each other out and all help each other get around places. So I'd love to bring more people into that setup as well. And we can all kind of help and support each other that way as well, or grow and expand our careers. That would be a great goal as well.
Awesome. So a few little more things, obviously, as we begin to wind down and stuff like that. What's the biggest thing you've learned in wrestling? It could be in the ring, it could be outside the ring.
I don't know if this is a cliche answer, but confidence. Again, I mentioned it before, but outside of the ring, I'm quite a quiet person. I'm quite content in my own company. You know, I don't really go out socially much and things like that. But I've met a lot of people through this sport. You know, from yourself to Kirsty to the rest of the squad to various people I've wrestled multiple times. I've met a lot of people doing this, and the confidence I'm talking about is the confidence to even just chat to people, to have a conversation. You know, even since being a kid and in school or whatever, I was always like the quiet, shy, withdrawn, nerdy kid. So holding a conversation for an hour was something that I honestly could have never done before I started wrestling. But continually pushing yourself out of that comfort zone, learning to perform that way and have that interaction and that back and forth with people really does help you socially and with confidence. So, you know, I can happily walk into a room full of people I've never met before now and get to know them and have a chat and, you know, crack a few jokes, have a bit of a good time. Whereas if you went back and you spoke to like the 17-year-old kid or whatever I would have been at the time before I started even doing anything, that would have been an absolute nightmare situation for me. If you went, hey, go in that room and talk to 2 people over there, I'd be like, no way. But so it's been good. It's helped a lot with confidence, coming out of my shell a lot. And yeah, it works, especially when you present a character out there to the world and it's interacted with, it's well received, and then you meet people after shows or during intervals or whatever, and people are just, everybody I've met up and down through wrestling, from fellow trainees to promoters to journalists to random fans, have all been great. Like they're all, everybody's nice to talk to, everybody's pleasant, everybody has this backwards and forwards, and it's going to sound really cheesy, but it is like being part of one big community. It's one big, at the end of, I've heard this said before, but at the end of the day, we're all just massive nerds who like wrestling. So it's that camaraderie draws everyone together, and it, you know, I could have never met you and walked up to you at a show and had a conversation with you, and chances are we can have a good 10, 15-minute conversation at least, just talking about one wrestling match. Do you know what I mean? So it's great, it's phenomenal. So yeah, confidence, definitely confidence.
And that is a brilliant thing to end on and stuff like that. Damian, before we stay wind down and stuff like that, is there anything you'd like to plug, my man?
So at the moment, the firing squad is still doing good work. We are always on the lookout for new people. So if anyone wants to put themselves forward, slide into my DMs, chat to Dylan Chase, chat to Tyler Tarantino, and we would love to speak with you. I myself, I'm looking to fill a lot of my calendar up for the remainder of the year. So anybody wants to see me anywhere, or any promoters who happen to catch this want to see me anywhere, by all means, please, slide on into those DMs again. And yeah, let Charles Carlin know that I really want to work him in a match. But yeah, no, aside from that, we'll just keep them busy. We'll just keep them working, and working a lot of stuff up here over the summer with W3L and SWE. So keep an eye out for those if you're in like the Glasgow and Dundee areas. So yeah, I think that's everything I can talk about at the moment. But yeah, that's good. Just keep an eye out and get on it.
What we'll do is we'll put your link in, obviously, to your Instagram in the description, so they can shoot from this video to go check you out. How's that?
Amazing. I appreciate that. That's great.
Absolutely. So I need one final thing from you, man. So everyone I interview gets to do the outro for this show, so they can say anything they want, they can promote anything they want. I'll hit the outro. Damian, take it away.
Okay, cool. So we've done some promoting. So what we're going to do is, so this is Damian Black, the leader of the firing squad. We've just had an excellent chat on the magic of wrestling, about all things Damian Black, the most important thing you need to hear about professional wrestling right now. So you want to make sure that you listen to this whole thing. You want to make sure that you are following, liking, sharing, subscribing, all of that stuff to not only Damian Black, the silencer himself, but also the magic of wrestling. Guns up.